There is no denying that game development can be a pretty stressful job. We've heard many scare stories about how developers were pushed to their limit in order to hit deadlines and goals, only to be laid off once the work was finished. And Telltale Games are one of those companies who've just been hit by layoffs. But we've just heard some interesting details about what exactly happened.
In an investigation by website USGamer, several former Telltale employees have revealed the pretty harsh working conditions at the studio and how they struggle to make games. Telltale laid off 90 employees last week, which equates to about 25% of their entire staff. But why did that happen and how did they get there? Well, as USGamer tells it, after the success of The Walking Dead Season 1, Telltale were requested to work on a number of high-profile franchises like Game of Thrones, Batman and Minecraft. But the challenge of working on all these IPs at the same time meant resources and development time was stretched too thin, which of course led to a dip in quality. According to one source, a creative director at Telltale had a printout on their door which read, quote, "It's not about how much time you need to make a good game. It's about how good of a game you can make with the time that you have."
One anonymous former developer at Telltale said, quote, "The mentality was to work harder, faster, and for as long as you can to hit your milestones. Churn and burn." Upon release, games like Batman, Game of Thrones, and The Walking Dead Season 2 were criticised for numerous bugs and glitches, which caused Telltale's reputation to take a bit of a hit. There was also the enormous pressure of working on established IPs, which one employee said was a hindrance, because the IP holder is constantly checking in to make sure the product is up to their standards. However, according to USGamer's sources, the biggest problem at Telltale was the management team, who would ask for last-minute rewrites, which could sometimes account for up to 80% of the game. One source said, quote, "Sometimes team leadership would push through with rewrites anyway for one of many reasons: time, prestige, actual belief in subpar ideas. And it would always come back on them in the end. We'd always eventually fix the product, but late fixes were deeply disruptive. These problems could have been avoided by better decisions earlier in the process." You can see the challenge that they were faced with here. They wanted to scale up their business, right? They wanted to go from a small kind of development team who produced one game into like a huge development team producing 3 games at once, and like, who wouldn't? But the problem with this is obviously they're a creative team and they need to maintain the creative process, but they are industrializing their process now. They're scaling everything up. They need to get new managers and stuff in place, and if they're trying to just like convey about these games out, where's the creativity going? Like that, obviously it's not easy to be creative when you're constrained to time pressures and everything else. I mean, we work in a creative field, and these are the same kind of challenges that we are faced with on a daily basis. We don't want to have to force our content out, because that loses a bit of the creativity, a bit of the magic, a bit of, you know, something has to give basically on a creative scale. And this is kind of what's happened. It looks like is that they were pushed too hard. They were given too strict deadlines. There were changes to the script last minute, and everything culminated in that their quality dipped. All right, they got them out the door, but there were bugs and there were all sorts of problems like that. You can't be like that in a creative business, and obviously they've learned this the hard way.
According to that same source at USGamer, feedback at the studio was also wildly inconsistent and almost contradictory at times. They said, quote, "So much effort was spent reacting to reactions and the notes would be wildly different every time. So a lot of time it resulted in schizophrenic game episodes cobbled together via contrary notes. Further problems stem from the overuse of Telltale's own game engine, the Telltale tool, which apparently was not equipped to handle even some basic tasks." In an article by Patrick Klepek on Waypoint earlier this year, he said an inside source told him the Telltale engine lacked basic things like a physics system. What that means is if a designer came up with a scene where, you know, say a ball rolled across the floor or a book fell off a shelf, then the animation team had to handcraft every frame, which took up a lot of time and resources. According to one employee, the team were always trying to improve the engine, but deadlines and release schedules meant some bugs and glitches made it past the QA process.
But apparently things are improving at the studio. Telltale recently announced they had brought in former Zynga general manager Pete Hawley to restructure the company and put them on course correction. Part of this restructuring included laying off those 90 employees, but according to USGamer's sources, many of these layoffs were aimed at the instigators of Telltale's problems, and there is now a refreshed corporate culture in place.
That wording there, I'm not sure about. The instigators were disposed of.
Scapegoats.
And they have been replaced.
Scapegoats,
It's a bit North Korean. It really is a lot, like 3 entire games. I mean, you look at the way that they announced the redundancies, right? So they got rid of 90 staff and they said, but don't worry, we're still going to be making the end in the Walking Dead series. Batman Series 2, the second series of Wolf Among Us. Like, what are you doing? That's 3. I mean, there might have been another one for it. I can't really remember. But the point is, there was at least 3. So that's clearly too much, and that's part of the problem here. The fact that they've got rid of middle management suggests to me that it was quite a widespread issue. 90 employees is a lot. All of them weren't managers, maybe, but just a part of the population that has gone were some of those middle managers that were causing problems. That poster on the door is kind of what stands out to me. That like it's not about how good a game you can make in whatever. It's about how good a game you can make in the time that you've got. That says it all, really, doesn't it?
That is the problem with making games, and when it becomes a business, isn't it? You've obviously got to balance the amount of money that you've got and the amount of resources you've got to make the game, the amount of time that you've got left to make the game, with actually making a good game. And obviously, they managed that in the first instance. The first game was good. I can vouch for that. The first game was awesome. But then when they tried to scale up the whole business and trying to mass produce these games like they did, like carbon copies of each other, something was lost there. Like if you played one Telltale game, you've played them all kind of thing. There's all the same kind of things in place. They need to get back to the art of it, don't they? They need to refresh it, which is what they've done. And hopefully that these measures that they've made as a business are corrective measures that going forward that will help them produce proper, decent games again, which are new, that feel fresh, that they've got something new to add.
It's like them Lego games, isn't it? It's like at this point, maybe there was a time where they'd say, oh, they're making a Lord of the Rings game, and you go, yes, that's a perfect fit, this is exciting. Now it's like, oh, they're making another Marvel game, and you just go, of course they are. Of course they are. It's a Lego game and it's Marvel. Marvel's a big thing, so they're going to be making Marvel games now. It's exactly the same thing with Telltale. When they announced the Game of Thrones one, I remember specifically thinking, of course that's happening. Why would they not do that? It's a perfect fit, and not in a good way. So they just need to, exactly like Gareth said, just think about what they're doing and choose their projects more carefully and select games that they think they can really deliver on and make good games and keep that quality up there. Because that's a big problem with gaming. They just forget that it's important to make good games and that they think just getting games out is enough to be a successful business, where clearly it's not. They've had to lay off 90 people, which is not good.
So that's what the ex-employees of Telltale Games have been saying, and that's our take on it. What is your take? Let us know down in the comments below. Like the video if you've enjoyed it, subscribe if you're new around here. There's another video to watch on the screen there. Support us on Patreon if you are awesome. We will see you again next time. Bye for now.